Hello, I welcome you once again to this segment of our learning program. Believe you are doing well as I am. Today's subject is English language, and our topic is narrative or storytelling. Now, this is going to mark the continuation of the story that we told the last time, and I promised that we were going to continue. I hope you still remember the story. What was the title of the story? Yeah, The Strange Wrestling Match. The Strange Wrestling Match. Alright. What are we supposed to achieve at the end of this lesson? At the end of the lesson, you can read a sample story to narrate a story. You can also write or narrate a story from your life experience. And also, you learn some moral lessons from the story. Get ready for the lesson. Continuation of the story, The Strange Wrestling Match. Let's see whether your thought was right. I asked you a question. What you were thinking will happen to the great fighter or the wrestler. Let's see whether your guess was right. Stay tuned. Really? I don't know why you wanted to meet me, the giant said. That proves, said Vijay Singh in a bored voice, that you are a stupid giant. The least a giant can do is to read a man's thoughts. However, a useless giant like you is better than no giant. I'm tired of wrestling with men. I want to fight a giant. The giant was speechless. He tried to look Vijay Singh in the eye. Really, he said, you don't appear all that strong to me. Appearances can be misleading, Vijay Singh said. Take your own case. You claim to be an at war. Thought actually you are a weak giant. If you doubt my strength, let me display it to you. Vijay Singh picked up a piece of rock from the sand and offered it to the giant. Take this and squeeze it hard, he said. It is filled with liquid. See if I'm wrong. While the giant tried to squeeze the rock, first with one hand, then with both, Vijay Singh quietly took out the egg from his pocket. He grabbed the rock from the giant and placed it between both hands and squeezed. At once, yellow yolk oozed from around his fingers, and the crackling of the eggshell cracked the impression of the rock being crushed. And the crackling of the eggshell created the impression of the rock being crushed. The giant was so surprised that he did not see Vijay Singh cleaning his hands with sand, nor throwing away the telltale shell. Vijay Singh picked up another piece of rock and gave it to the giant. Silently, the giant took it, felt it, and then stared at it. Vijay Singh put his hand into his pocket to take out the lump of salt. The giant protested that it was only a stone and that it was too dark to see. Never heard of a giant who can't see in the dark, remarked Vijay Singh. The stone which you hold in your hand contains salt. Crumble it. Again, the giant tried unsuccessfully to crush the stone. Doubting his powers, he handed it over to Vijay Singh. He handed over the stone to Vijay Singh. What's the use of wrestling with a weakling whom I can floor in a minute? So saying, Vijay Singh effortlessly crumbled the lump of salt and let the stone drop in the darkness. He held out his hand and commanded the giant to taste the powdered stone. Completely believing in the Pahawan's extraordinary strength, the giant did as he was told. This man could easily defeat him in a wrestling in the dark, but possibly he could be tricked in other ways. Humbly, the giant requested Vijay Singh to rest for the night at his house and leave the next day. Now overjoyed, Vijay Singh replied, I cannot refuse your kindness, but tomorrow you will go with me as my prisoner. I must display the trophy of my victory to my people. The giant bowed in agreement, but silently vowed to kill Vijay Singh in the night. He led him to his house in a cave. The giant fed him with dry fruits and a lot of milk, and later led him to a very comfortable bed to sleep on, complete with pillows and bolsters. But Vijay Singh lay awake, listening to the snores of the giant. In the middle of the night, he slipped out of his bed. He placed a bolster in the center of the bed, throwing a blanket over it to make it look exactly like a sleeping man. Having done this, he sat quietly, watching in the dark corner. Just before dawn, the giant came towards the bed, armed with a lathi. He brought the lathi down on what he thought was Vijay Singh's head. Not hearing even a cry, he was pleased that he had killed his enemy. What do you think is going to happen next? Is he going to fight Vijay Singh? Is he going to defeat him? When he finds out he had deceived him. Okay, let's continue. To make doubly sure, he struck the bolster 6 times more. Satisfied, he returned to his sofa, and covering his head, went back to sleep. Vijay Singh too climbed back silently into bed. After some time, he groaned as if sickened, threw back his coverlet and sat up. Disturbed by this noise, the giant peeped and was shocked to see the strong man stretching and yawning. Friend giant, there are insects in your cave, said Vijay Singh. The sweetest sleep I've had in years, and there comes this insect to trouble me. I distinctly counted 7 flappings of its wings. The giant was frightened. Those 7 blows would have reduced any man to paste. There is no safety near a horrible wrestler like this, he thought, and ran away from the cave, leaving behind all stolen wealth. It took several camels from the village to move the property Vijay Singh had got. He returned much of it to the rightful owners. He was especially made to go to old women and then give all or return all their rightful belongings to them. He then went to the old woman, thanked her for her invaluable gift, and asked for her daughter's hand in marriage. From then on, Vijay Singh was more careful about boasting. It is said that no traveler was ever troubled in the desert again. Don't forget you are to learn moral lessons from this story. I hope you've enjoyed this aspect of our storytelling. Thank you for your time. Don't forget to write your own story or stories from your personal experience. Put yourself into it. Sometimes I know you really watch movies or read stories, you are told stories, and you feel like putting yourself in the story or being part of the story. Yeah, that's great. And so make sure you make your story real as part of your life experience. Stay safe. Bye for now.